What if I told you a Marvel movie could teach you something about making music in a home studio? I know, it's a little weird, but stick with me. It's this idea of working backwards with music. What if you made your music backwards? Now, what do I mean by that? I don't mean playing it in reverse, although I did that as a kid. I played Another One Bites the Dust by Queen, and I'm pretty sure I could hear him say in reverse, "It's fun to smoke marijuana." I heard it. I don't know, but that's neither here nor there. Marvel, the whole Marvel Cinematic Universe, when it started with Iron Man and then progressed through that, they've done a brilliant job of forcing people like myself to stay in their seats until the end of all the credits. Prior to that, when the movie was over, you would stand up and walk out. And if you were super nerdy, you might clap first and then walk out. But with Marvel, there are all these end credit scenes, and they force you to sit and watch all the names scroll up until the end credit scene comes. And it gives you a little tidbit of what's coming next, or sometimes it's just a funny little piece of video. It's whatever. You've probably seen it. But when I think about that and I think about making music, specifically when I see all those names involved in making a movie, it's overwhelming for me, because I start to imagine, all right, there's 30 names on the screen right now, and one of those people had a full-time job for a number of months or years that was one little component of this massive movie that just got released. It takes millions of dollars, thousands of people, and several years to pull off something like this. And I think about that when I make my music. A lot of times it's just me here doing everything. Or at most, it's me and a few other musicians, but then I'm mostly doing it all. And the idea of taking on an undertaking like that involves thousands of people, just my brain, for some reason, just kind of like short circuits when I think about it, because it's just such a big undertaking. But what's interesting is when you think about all those people, any one of them, or if you, for ease of fitting it all in your brain, if you divide up the movie making process into big chunks, like here's the post-production people, here's the on-set people, here's the setting up the script and doing all the casting and all of that, any one of those big departments could completely botch the film, right? And it typically works backwards. So you can have a great story, but and it could even be shot well with great actors, but if the edit isn't good, right, they leave too much in, or they don't edit it in a way that's very cohesive, you end up like missing parts of the story, or you're not sure what's happening. It feels jerky, or maybe it feels long and slow, and you're like, let's speed this story along. Editing plays a huge role in that. If it's not shot well, obviously that's going to affect the editing, because the editor can't fix a bad shot. They can maybe do a lot of things to it, and obviously there's lots of CGI and things like that, but ultimately it has to be shot well if the edit's going to go well. And the only way it's going to be shot well is if you've got, good cameras and good camera crew and all the sound people and everybody doing their job right. But that's only going to work if you've got the right actors, if you cast the right person for that particular role. If you get the wrong person in the role, you can shoot film all day, but they're not going to be great, right? And that's going to affect the rest of the process. And you can keep going backwards in this process to, if the script's not done well, if the story itself isn't good, then it affects every other phase of the process. And it is exactly the same in the home studio for making music. Thankfully, the stakes aren't as high. It doesn't cost millions of dollars to make an album in your home studio. Trash company comes to the back of our house and picks up the trash, but he's always blasting music, and I love it. Anyway, where was I? Making music in a home studio is similar. We've got these different departments, and there's not as many as with a movie, thank goodness, but there's the song, there's the musician, there's the performance, there's the recording, there's the editing somewhat, there's the mixing, there's the mastering. Any one of these pieces of the process could totally ruin the entire process. And so that's why it's so important that each piece gets its proper attention. That's why I say get it right at the source a lot. And a lot of people think I'm just talking about recording. The idea that if the recording sounds bad, I can't fix it in the mix. That's true, but that's just a small part of it. The recording could be great, but the song could be boring, right? Or it could be a fantastic recording of an acoustic guitar, but the guitar's out of tune and the person can't play very well. Who cares how great I've got the $10,000 microphone into the $10,000 preamp and it sounds amazing, except it doesn't sound amazing because the guitar's out of tune and the person can't really play it. That's a part of get it right at the source. Or maybe everything else is in play and the song is just terrible. There's only so much we can do with that. So as you're thinking about your next project, maybe you've got one in mind already, think about how you can make each step of the process as good as possible, because everybody down the line, even though that everybody's probably you, is either going to be helped or hurt by how you handle whatever phase you're in right now. So if I'm writing a song, I want to keep working on that song until it's fantastic. So I know that Mixer Joe is going to be happy that Songwriter Joe took the time to get that lyric right. So Mixer Joe isn't embarrassed every time he hears that cheesy lyric that I didn't replace with a better one, right? And you can come up with 1,000 other examples. Mastering engineer Joe is super glad that recording engineer Joe recorded that vocal in a certain way because it sits wonderfully in the mix versus the other microphone that wasn't working well. Can you see how it's so interconnected, and you can't keep each one builds on the other, and if any one is out of place, the whole thing falls over. Kind of like Jenga. Do you play Jenga? Yeah, me too. I'm terrible at it, but mixing is a lot like that. Any one piece can make the whole thing fall down. So how do we go about getting it right at the source? How do we think about that? Well, hopefully you're subscribed to this channel because we talk about it a lot, but another resource for you that I created is absolutely free. It's called the Recording Cheat Sheet, and it talks specifically about the recording production phase of this process and some cool little tips and tricks and pieces of advice to help you do that better. If you don't have the recording cheat sheet, I highly recommend you go check it out and read it tonight. You can get that at recordingcheatsheet.com. Otherwise, thanks so much for watching. Go make some music. I'll see you in the next one.